Your Case IH Offset Disk Harrow has been designed for use in a variety of conditions. Proper setup will provide you with maximum performance in your fields. We're going to touch on the key setup points for your harrow, but for the entire picture, refer to your operator's manual. In addition to providing greater detail on setup procedure, you'll find all the information you need on lubrication, maintenance, and storage, as well as important safety tips. In most cases, your offset harrow is delivered with preliminary adjustments already made according to the operator's manual and to your dealer's knowledge of local conditions. Occasionally, however, there may be a need to adjust to settings for your particular soil conditions. While some differences exist between models, these basic adjustments will have the same effect on performance for every Case IH Offset Disk Harrow. Let's start with the drawbar. Unless the drawbar is allowed to swing, the tractor will experience side draft. The right side of the harrow should be pinned, though, in order to permit shorter right-hand turns. This should only be done after adjustments are made to assure that the harrow pulls from the center of the tractor. In transport situations, the drawbar should always be pinned in the center. The hitch leveling crank controls the adjustment of the front to rear gang balance. If the front gang is too low, the harrow will swing to the left. If the rear gang is too low, it will cause a swing to the right. Place the harrow in the transport position and use the crank to level the front and rear gangs to one another. The leveling crank should also be used to relieve spring tension before unhitching the harrow from your tractor. The depth control bars have a double row of holes. The front row controls depth at the shallowest point, and the rear has two purposes: controlling depth at the deepest point and for pin storage when you're working at the deepest level. The single hole at the front is to be used anytime you're transporting your harrow on public roads. In operation, the best performance is achieved by setting the wheels to touch the ground at all times, even if maximum depth is desired. This helps to stabilize the harrow and reduce the possibility of rapid side shifts as you work. When the harrow is operating efficiently, it leaves a smooth and level feel behind it, and the furrow created by the left front disc is covered by the left rear disc. Various factors contribute to this smooth, trouble-free performance. If the main frame top beams are parallel to the center line of the tractor, it prevents a condition known as trailing off, which creates unwanted furrows to one side of the harrow, accompanied by a loss of horsepower. Occasional side draft is not unusual as the harrow encounters hard or soft spots in the field. If the problem occurs continually, however, it can cause some loss of power and be physically wearing on the operator because constant steering correction is required. Since the natural tendency of an offset harrow is to pull to the left, side draft is the most common problem. The solution most likely involves one of 2 points at the front of the harrow. Raise the front of the harrow using the adjustment crank. If you're unable to correct the side draft problem with this adjustment, it may be necessary to move the hitch point to the left. To correct side draft, move the pin to the next setting. Then pull ahead until the tongue is against the pin and install it in the new location. Remember to note the previous adjustment point anytime you make a change, and only do one thing at a time. This will help you make more accurate assessments. Also, as you adjust the settings on your harrow, allow yourself enough evaluation time, like 2 rounds in an 80-acre field. By the way, make sure that all your evaluations are based upon identical tractor ground speeds. A difference in ground speed can cause significant differences in harrow performance. If these initial hitch adjustments fail to achieve a reduction in side draft, the hitch plates can be moved along the crossmember as well. If hitch adjustments don't correct your side draft problems, one final correction can be attempted. Reducing the cutting angle on the front gang or increasing it on the rear can help to minimize side draft. In most instances, both gangs are set in the maximum cutting position. This provides minimum soil compaction, maximum draft efficiency, better trash coverage, and the best ground penetration. The maximum position can make proper trailing difficult. To change the cutting angle of the front gang, Loosen the U-bolts and move the angling pin to the hole adjacent to the one you want. Then move the harrow forward or to the rear. Secure by placing the pin in the new setting and securing the U-bolts. The rear gang can be changed in the same fashion. A harrow that trails off to the left will usually leave a ridge to the right side of your pass. This trailing off will be noticeable from the tractor seat because the frame will not be parallel to the tractor center line, and a loss of power may occur. As with side draft, several remedies are available. The first potential cure is the simplest. Using the crank, raise the harrow. If after a trial run the problem still exists, lower the hitch point on the front of the harrow. Note that these pins are always installed in a higher hole on the left side than on the right. You will need a jack to make these adjustments. Unlike many of the adjustments on your harrow, even a change of one position will make a dramatic difference, so make changes one at a time and test them thoroughly. Other adjustments that you might try include moving the hitch point to the right, reducing front gang angle, or increasing the angle in the rear. If your harrow trails to the right, follow the same order of adjustment on the corresponding side. The rear gang can be moved laterally if necessary to create a smooth surface. To do so, loosen the rear gang U-bolts, but leave the angling pin in place. Move the lateral positioning pin to a hole adjacent to the one you desire. Then move the harrow forward to position the gang further right and rearward to reposition to the left. After the lateral adjusting bracket contacts the positioning pin, install the pin in its new setting and securely tighten the U-bolts. If the harrow continually shifts from side to side, lower the transport wheels so that they ride on the ground with a slight downward pressure. If the gangs plug up with trash and soil, the scrapers need adjustment. In some conditions, more pressure must be put on the scrapers. First, make sure that all scrapers are properly set. Then loosen the scraper angle bolts and use a pry bar to move the entire assembly over to preload the scrapers against the blades. Retighten according to the torque chart in your operator's manual. Once you've adjusted the scrapers, they should be inspected frequently for damage, especially in rough conditions such as land reclamation. A bent scraper cutting into a spacer or bearing spool can cause the gang to loosen, and even more severe damage is possible if the condition persists. If the harrow is not penetrating properly in hard ground, check first to make sure that both front and rear gangs are set at maximum angle. Then raise the hitch at the front of the harrow. If this doesn't solve the problem, check the crank spring length against the specifications found in the operator's manual. As we've stated before, each of these adjustments can have a tremendous effect on overall harrow performance, so they must be made carefully. Make each adjustment one at a time and in small increments until you've achieved the desired setting. Then allow yourself enough trial time to make proper evaluation. Once you've properly adjusted the harrow, pin the drawbar so that it can't swing to the right and damage the tractor tire. Bearing wear guards can be especially important in abrasive soils. One comes standard on the right end of the rear gang, but under heavy abrasion a guard is recommended for each bearing to prevent excessive wear. Check these guards at least once a season, and if you do detect wear, simply turn them to provide a better surface. Speaking of wear, the blades also should be inspected on a regular basis. A 4-inch loss of disc diameter will give less than optimal results in the field. In addition to making the proper adjustments, regular maintenance and lubrication contribute to keeping your disc harrow in maximum operating condition. Refer to your operator's manual for a complete lubrication chart. Maintenance is especially important during the first few hours that you operate your new harrow. All bolts should be checked and tightened after the first day of operation. Check your operator's manual for the correct torquing information. It's especially important to check the wheel hub bolts, the scraper and scraper angle bolts, the hitch clevis bolt, and the gang arbor bolts. The arbor bolt should be checked most frequently in the first week, then periodically after. On a new harrow or on an older one with new blades, extra care is required. Operate the harrow in somewhat looser ground until the blade edges are slightly dulled. This helps to prevent breakage. When possible, it's always best to store your harrow inside. If you must store your disc harrow outside, take extra precautions to prevent rust. Make sure that your harrow is clean, all bare metal surfaces are well greased, potential rust spots are painted, blades coated with till coat, and all bolts retorqued before storing. Your Case IH disc harrow is designed to provide years of dependable service. Making the proper adjustments, performing the routine maintenance at the prescribed times, and following your operator's manual will help to keep it working at peak levels even longer.